Hi, everybody. Welcome to Backstage. To all of our people who come each time to join us, welcome back. We're so glad you make it a part of your life to enjoy Backstage. And for all you people who are here for the first time, you could not have picked a better day to join us. Our guest today is Richard Saucedo. Richard brings to the table an illustrious career as director of bands at Carmel High School in Carmel, Indiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, yeah, the same. And he's also the chair of the Department of Music there. They have a robust arts program in every facet. When Richard retired a few years ago, I think he didn't retire, I think he refired. And I was teasing him the other day saying, you're going to have to get a job to get some rest, my friend. He's a prolific composer, arranger. It would be almost impossible to go into any band room and open a folder and not find part of Richard's music that's there, that those children are enjoying at the highest level. All of that being said, and all of his accolades, that's far secondary to the great human being he is and to the mission-driven spirit he brings to everything he does. I have had the pleasure of doing several workshops with him, and I will tell you, when I sit in those workshops, it's just like good music, because every time I hear him, it gets better. So would you please welcome my dear friend, Richard Saucedo. What's going on, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing great, Tim, and so honored to be on this program. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, other way around, man. We're going to put you to work here. As most of you know, Richard's part of our Division of Education. He's one of our senior faculty. And so, my friend, give us a little short bird's eye view of your career. What you've been doing?
Well, I have a lot to thank my parents for, because they started me on piano, forced me to play piano. A lot of us have been through that. I was lucky enough to have great teachers as I was going through middle school and especially high school and at Indiana University. At high school, people like Don Hoffman. At Indiana University, obviously the wonderful Ray Kramer. So I've had some pretty good mentors. And so hopefully some of that rubbed off, some of that great teaching rubbed off. And I certainly try to be like those guys every day. But started off at a small school called Mount Vernon in Posey County for a year. Went up to Norwell in your neck of the woods near Bluffton for a year, and then got the call to come to Carmel. And it was really kind of interesting, because when the department chair, Ron Helms, called me, he said, Richard, we'd like for you to interview for the assistant band director position. I said, oh, I'd be honored. That'd be great. So I came down and went into the room with the principal and Ron, or the assistant principal and Ron, and they said, well, how would you feel about doing an interview for the head director job? And I was like, excuse me? And so that's how it kind of happened. It was a little bit of a surprise, and I had to get my act together pretty quickly.
How old were you then, Richard? How old at that time?
Oh my gosh, let's see. I would have been at that time about 23, 24, somewhere in there.
Unbelievable. Baptism by fire, yes?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, we all know about the Carmel program. Can you just give us three things, a trilogy of why that program is like it is? Just three things we can take away.
Well, I think the first thing would be just the support that we have, not just from our administration at the building level, but from the administration at the district level, the support from the community. Carmel is a very affluent arts community. Mm-hmm. It's not just affluent from a business standpoint, it's very affluent arts community. We have a wonderful performance hall in downtown Carmel, which is, I think it's one of the best that's ever been built. And it's called the Center for the Performing Arts. And so there's a lot of support right there. And I think that just having music be a part of your culture in that community has helped us a lot. I've had some wonderful principals. I've had principals that have gone to bat for us at times probably when they shouldn't have gone to bat for us. I've had principals that believe so much in the music program that when I was a department chair, one time my principal asked me not to come to a department chair meeting. And I was like, I was taken back. I was like, what, why? He goes, I don't think you're going to want to be there. And I thought, oh, wow, he's cutting half my faculty. Here we go. What I found out later is that he didn't want me there because he was cutting about 15 teachers, but none of them were for performing arts.
Ah,
And that's how much he believed in our program. So I was so lucky to be at a school like that. I tried never to take it for granted, but man, I was lucky. And then I had a wonderful staff. You know, I'm a big believer in that you hire people that are better than you are. And that's what I did. You know, I just went out and found all these great teachers like Mike Pope, Chris Krakey, and Cook, even Dave Coughing and Greg Bell back in the day. You know, all these people are better than I am in so many areas. And so I learned from them. We all kept getting better together. And I couldn't be more proud that now the program has been taken over by my former student, Mike Pope, former student teachers, Chris Krakey and Andy Cook. And I'm just thrilled that they're keeping the program going. But I think staff is pretty important.
yeah. So support, administration, and a great staff.
Yeah, because if, you know, everyone says you want to put your kids first, but if you're going to put your kids first, you got to make sure you're ready to get in front of your kids, you know, and without that support and without the staff, it's tough to really 100% be there for your kids. And so like I said, I was very, very lucky to be in that situation.
Yeah. Some of the luck may have rubbed off from you to other people too, but I'll leave that for another time. I have told you several times, Richard, that when I was teaching leadership classes at Ball State, and all the kids would come in, you know, I could spot the Carmel kids. Not to make you feel good, but there were countless times that after class I would say to somebody, "Come here. Did you happen to go to Carmel High School?" And they're like, "Uh-huh." "Were you in the band?" "Uh-huh." Was your director, Mr. Saucedo? Uh-huh. And I know you created an incredible culture of excellence. Now, is it just lucky in the water there that they're like that? Or what happens when a person is
Well,
part of a culture like that?
it's way more than the band, Tim. It's Carmel High School has a culture of excellence.
Mhm.
And no matter what you do or what you come in to do, if you're willing to do the work, you have the chance to do it at Carmel High School. I know the last principal I worked for, whose name was John Williams, just like the great
Mhm.
composer. John would always say, when he was interviewing someone to work at Carmel High School, he said, if you're willing to put in the work that our teachers normally put in here, he goes, you can write your own ticket. You can become the finest in your area, the finest math teacher, the finest science teacher, the finest band director, if you're willing to do the work, because we will support you. So that was a big part of that. The culture in the band area came from everybody. It came from our staff. It came from our parents. It came from our students. It was a combination of, well, we had a sign up in front of the band room that one of our drum majors came up with the idea, and it just said, excellence is a lifestyle.
Mm.
And that's how we tried to live our lives. And, you know, I would always have kids come up and say, Mr. Saucedo, does that mean after we walk out that door as well? I'm like, sorry, yeah, it does. And they're like, ugh. I'm like, you're gonna make it? They're like, yeah, we'll figure it out. But what great kids, you know, just wonderful kids, and so many of them are doing so great right now in so many wonderful professions and leading the world. I couldn't be more proud of them.
I was just going to say that you've got a barricade full of trophies, but it's still the students that are the real trophies. Yeah.
The kids are the trophies,
Yeah.
you know, especially when I hear, even nowadays, I'll still hear on Facebook or something from a former student, you know, do you remember this? Do you remember that? Always makes me tear up, because that's what matters. That's what you remember.
Yeah. Being in lots of bands rooms and choir rooms and orchestra rooms, I always go in and you can feel the spirit the minute you walk in. You can get the spirit of the room, which usually means how well they're going to perform or rehearse and everything. And when I would walk into your room, I never heard a hint of, please don't talk, or, hey, can you guys, pay attention? Or the discipline of the group was with the peers themselves. How did that happen?
Well, I think a lot of that, to be honest, did come from the fact that they cared so much about the program.
Mhm.
And by the time you were a junior or senior, you felt like part of your responsibility was to pass on
Mm.
to the freshmen and sophomores the way that it's done here.
Mhm.
And so they did that, and they tried to do it in a very positive way. And at the end of the season, you know, our underclassmen always gave our seniors gifts. And I
Cool.
could always tell by the kind of gifts that a senior would receive how much they really meant to the section. And I would look over in corners in some sections. I remember, I think it was clarinets or flutes one time, and there was a pile stacked halfway to the ceiling of gifts for this senior. And she was over there crying, and or there were 2 or 3 seniors over there crying. I was like, that tells me everything I need to know. You know, these kids have been, you know, not bossing kids around, but they've been making sure kids stay with the expectations all season long. And yet these kids love them to death, you know, so that's the kind of leaders we're looking for.
Yeah. The mortar between the bricks sometimes is stronger than the bricks itself. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, we're living in some pretty unusual times now, and you clearly are a master teacher. If the tables were turned and you were back in, what advice would you have for these people who are online, hybrid, face to face, not yes, no, we're in, we're out?
I know so many people are freaking out, especially young teachers, because I've talked to many of them. I've done sessions with them online, and Tim, I've seen some young teachers crying in those sessions because they just don't think their kids are going to come back after a year like this. They're worried about losing parents. They're worried about the whole thing. And I said, there's only one thing that you can really control, and that's when you're looking at that screen across to your kids. And I said, if you can't run an ensemble, what's the next best thing you can do? You know, and immediately directors would say, train the individual. And I'm like, exactly right. So when you get back into the classroom full time, you're going to be fine because you've done so much work setting those individuals up for success
Mhm.
that when you get the band back, you know, getting the band back together, I know is the thing that we're all talking about right now. But you get that ensemble back together and they've all improved individually. I can't imagine that it's not going to be just so exciting for those kids to get back there. Everyone's saying, well, the kids aren't going to be strong when they get back. It doesn't have to be that way.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean just assign scales. It doesn't, you know, just assign those kind of things. You know, we can learn about music. You know, we can study history, and you may think that students aren't into studying composers, but you might be surprised. You know, at when someone's heard a Chopin etude, it's funny how many music students want to go then to YouTube or iTunes or something else, and they want to find more Chopin. How can you not? Because it's beautiful, right? So it's a matter of developing the individual student. And if we have to do it online or we have to do it in person, you know, one of the clinics that I do a lot around the country is called Developing the Individual and the Ensemble at the same time. And I think we have to do both. But in this case, when we can't always play together, you've got to develop the individual. And if I get better as an individual, why wouldn't I be excited to come back to band? But if I'm hanging out, just doing scales, whatever, I'm just not sure. So be creative. We have to be innovative about what we're asking our students to do. Have guest speakers, have performers. You know, there's all kinds of things we can do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Give up giving up, right?
Yeah,
Stay the course. Stay the
you
course.
have to.
Yeah. I'm going to flip on you a little bit here because you can go forever about all the things within the profession itself, but you have a son who's in a high school band now.
Mm.
How is that from a parent standpoint? What are you hoping for Ethan and what he'll gain from that experience?
Well, I hope he doesn't grow any taller because he's already an inch taller than I am, which is worrying me a little bit. Now he's fantastic. And I got to give the Fishers band folks props because they let him come in as an 8th grader. He's playing in the front ensemble, playing on the rack where he's playing like 10 or 12 different instruments. And, I was telling Chad Kohler, the director, the other night, I said, I don't know what you're doing to these kids, but my son just finished a 3.5-hour rehearsal with you guys, and he's downstairs practicing for 2 more hours when he gets home. I'm like, what are you doing to these kids? I said, I think you might be motivating them. So I'm thrilled. He has a wonderful teacher, wonderful teacher. Her name is Marissa Turney, one of the finest teachers I've ever watched teach in my life, Tim. And I mean that sincerely. I watch her give Ethan's lessons, and I've watched her take him in the last 2 or 3 years, and just working with him as an individual. He could barely hit his butt with both hands, and now he's getting a 4-mallet marimba solo ready to play as an 8th grader. He's doing all this rudimental stuff. He's just told me he's going to try out for the Honor Band of America in Pasadena, and he goes, do I really have to play for Mike McIntosh? And I'm like, yeah, you do. And then he's already talking about the drum course he wants to audition for. And I did not push this at all, I swear. All I did was say, you got to try this out. And the first day he came back and he was like, from marching band at Fisher, said, I'm not sure. Second day, he's like, Dad, come on, we're going to be late. So we're just, Sarah and I could not be more proud of him, and we're just thrilled.
The apple did not fall far from the tree, right? Is DNA, right? Okay, we're going to play word games here. I'm going to throw a word to you, Richard, and you're going to react to it in terms of how it integrates into the profession. All right, here we go. Communication.
I'll apologize for being negative first, but it's the downfall of most organizations. No matter how much we talk about it, no matter how many books are read on it, you can still trace most things back to where the communication broke down, yes. Whether it was between 2 individuals or whether it was between a group, yes. Or in our setting, whether it's between a director and parents, or band boosters and parents, or directors and kids, directors and administrators. It all comes down to communication. Probably the best example I could give would be the relationship between music folks and athletic folks in their own building. It's about communicating. And sometimes the music folks, we feel like we have to be the ones reaching out. But you might be surprised at how much those athletic people are interested in hearing what we do too. But we just have to reach out and communicate. But I think it's the most important thing we do. Well, every time we're in a rehearsal, Tim, and we stop the band for a second, we better communicate in a purposeful and meaningful way, and in a positive way, that kids go, oh, I can do that and I can get better. So even in that situation, it's about communication. I think it's number one above everything else that we do.
Well, and there's no end to it. You don't do it and you're done. It's all the time.
Right.
You're watering that plant all the time. Okay, here we go. Next one, friend. Trust relationships.
That's kind of an emotional one for me. There were so many times that I got in front of my kids, or Mike Pote got in front of our kids, or Chris Crakey or Andy Cook got in front of our kids, and now Kyle gets in front of them. And you just see the eyes staring in at you. Before, at the very beginning of rehearsal, they're just waiting for the next tidbit to come out of Pote's mouth, or any of those guys, and that's a trust relationship, because they believe that whatever we're about to say could change their lives if they'll listen and try it. And I think especially the guys that are there now have developed those trust relationships from being positive, number one, from putting students first when they make their comments, not trophies first. And people always say, well, Carmel wins a lot. Well, let me tell you why Carmel wins a lot. Because their kids trust their directors, and they'll do whatever they ask because they know the directors care about them first. And so it's developing those relationships. It's about having the principal come down and sit in your rehearsal every once in a while, and you're saying, everything okay? And the principal looks at you and goes, I just needed to get down to the band room for a minute. I just needed to get away from everything else. You know, trust relationship with parents. When you make a decision about the band, you know, you have to have those relationships with parents, so they're going to be like, we believe you. We will back you. Even though this is scaring us a little bit, we'll back you, because we know if it's scaring us, we can tell you it's scaring us, and you'll listen, and we'll discuss it. And you just won't take a right turn without at least talking to us about it. And I think it's, you know what, Tim? Back to communication.
Yeah, they feed each other.
It really is.
Yeah, they feed each other. They're brother, sister, for sure. Yep. Okay, here we go. High expectations.
You know, this is a funny one, I think, because when people think of high expectations, they think of coaches that raise their voice. You know, they think that people who are constantly pushing and just on that side of the needle of being negative. I don't believe you have to do that at all. I think high expectations, if you have high expectations, you better have high knowledge.
Yes.
Because if you're going to expect your kids to do something, you better know what you're doing. You know, and if you ever blame the kids for something, and I used to do this as a young teacher, you know, I would walk out of rehearsals. I was an idiot so many times I would blame the kids for things. It's because I didn't know what I was doing. You know, and if I could go back to all those kids, I'd apologize to them now.
Boy, that's emotional in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
That the value that you have in that setting, and not to do anything to damage it, but only to uplift it.
Right, right.
Okay, here we go. The teacher as a leader.
Well, every book, you know, every session that you hear from people talks about the fact that you can say whatever you want, but it's what you do that sets the standard. And if you're asking your kids to do something, but you're not willing to go there yourself, or you're not willing to make yourself vulnerable, you're not going to develop those trust relationships, you know. But I do think as a leader, going a little different direction with it as a leader, I know that right now we're walking a fine line between being able to help a student on a personal side and not doing that. And Tim, I'm going to be honest, I hate that part of it.
Yeah.
Because when I first started as a teacher, I was so close to students in such a great way. You know, they could tell me anything. And I know we had some kids that had problems, a couple kids that had real problems, but they would come in, close the door, and they would go crazy on me and tell me what was going on. And sometimes I wonder if they hadn't have done that, you know? Mm-hmm. And so it scares me about today. We're taught to be so hands-off, you know, but there's a certain amount of keeping an eye on what's going on past the musical side that I think music teachers have to do, as well as any teachers out there. I think we have to keep an eye on it.
I think it may be louder with music teachers simply because of the emotional aspect of the curriculum itself and the frequency they're around the music teachers.
Absolutely.
You know, that's why the culture is so important.
Yep.
This next one fits right into it, and it supports everything we've said so far. Role modeling. Teacher role modeling.
Yeah, and I think you're trying to role model a couple different things. You're trying to role model excellence. You're trying to role model consistency. One of the things at Carmel, and I think that Pope, Crakey, Cook, you know, all of them, Kyle, they would all agree with me. One of the things that we're trying to model, I know who else would really agree with me, is Jeff Young. Mm-hmm. Don't skip steps. Mm-hmm. So when you're in, you know, Pope will call me every once in a while and he'll say, Saucedo, you'd be really proud of me today. And I'd be like, what'd you do, Mike? He goes, spent 90 minutes tuning 2 chords. And I'm like, kid's about to kill you? He's like, oh yeah. He goes, it was ugly. He goes, but he said, but you should have heard those two chords. You know, and I said, but they know, don't they? He's like, they absolutely. He goes, we played that last chord and every face just lit up. You could see the goosebumps. You know, he said, we could have played through the music. He said, we needed to tune those chords. And so that's what we're trying to teach, is to be patient, one thing at a time. Let the steps build on each other instead of trying to force kids into that performing role right away until they're ready. And that's what I worry about now, Tim, with what we're going through now, is kids are going to come back 100% and we're going to say, okay, we got to catch up. We got to catch up. No, we don't. What we do is we take those kids and we start where they are. And if it's an F concert, sorry, it's an F concert. If it's breathing, it's breathing. If it's how to walk into the classroom again, it's how to walk into the classroom.
Yes.
So
it's all fundamentals. That's why they
Yep.
call them fundamentals, right?
Yep.
And you can't get away without brushing your teeth, so to speak.
Nope. Can't do it.
Sometimes it hurts a little bit. Last question, and Richard, this is just, man, another clinic for Tim. The importance, and you're straddling the fence now between education and industry. You know, we're so glad you're part of the Summer Division of Education, but what do you see in terms of how industry and education should work together? Music industry and music education.
Well, the nice thing about working with some of the companies I've worked with, including Consumer, is that I've gotten to see the other side of things. I've gotten to see the manufacturing part. And the best companies, Tim, in my mind, and I'm not just talking about music companies, the best companies realize that if they serve their clients to the nth degree, they're going to be fine financially. You know, and I think the same is with music instrument dealers, publishers, all of that. And I've been so lucky to work with companies who put directors first, they put kids first. And if they're trying to make a product, they're trying to make a product. Of course, they have to make a living and that company has to make a certain amount of money. But when they put that trumpet in someone's hand, they want that kid to be all smiles. They want that parent to be all smiles. You know, they're doing it for the right reasons. And so I think that the two have to work together. But I also think it's very important that the directors communicate with the different companies and say, this is where we're at. This is what we need. Can you help us? Instead of just, what's the next instrument you're going to sell us? You know, can you help us? And I think directors, I know I didn't do that enough when I was teaching, and I think in general, directors probably don't make that communication happen enough.
Yeah, it's a win-win, synergistic part of the ecosystem. We have to take care of our cousins.
Yep, and they have to survive if we're going to survive.
Absolutely.
You know, and we have to survive as teachers and schools and programs if they're going to survive. You know, we can argue about who's the better company, who makes better horns, whatever, all we want. But if music education stops, factories close up. All right. So I think we have to think about those things.
The machine stopped too. You were one of our first VIPs when you were still at it. And when you went, I'm going to do this real fast, but when you went through the Bach plant, right? What were your thoughts about the people there?
Just incredible. I didn't know what to think, to be honest, Tim. I was kind of anti anybody that was trying to take my money from our school, you know, and it's probably one of the best lessons I ever got when I saw the care that they were taking and making those instruments. And on the day that I was there, there were a couple other people there, and I remember the trombone person that was doing the slides. The trombone player came up to him and he said, "When did you start working here?" And the guy didn't even look at him, said, "I made your slide, I guarantee it." And he told him what year he got his horn. He's like, "Bach slide? Yeah, I made yours." And he's like, really? He got his autograph. And, you know, and it's just really neat to see how much those people care about what they're doing.
It's like everything. And it's true with every other manufacturer too.
Yeah.
You know, that sense of care, that personalization. Okay, well, I told you this half hour would go fast, right? Last thing. as you leave and we're headed off into the next thing, any last thoughts just to throw out to our profession that said, Richard Saucedo thinks, boom.
Young teachers, stay positive no matter what. Don't give up on your administrators. Help work with your administrators. Make sure it's a two-way street. Don't go into your administrators and make the first time they've ever heard you is when you complain about something.
Amen.
All right. It's everything is a two-way street. And also with parents. But the number one thing I would say is you got to keep learning every day. You got to find something that you didn't know the day before. So when you get on that podium the next day, you got something new to give to those kids. And I mean every single day of your career. You do that, you're going to be just fine.
That's great. Many people probably won't remember these names. Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen from the Chicago Bulls.
Absolutely.
You know? And they asked Michael Jordan, why was Scottie Pippen so important? And he said, I can pass the ball blind and know he's there.
There you go.
And you're one of those kind of people for me, Richard. I can.
Well, I appreciate that, Tim. And you, for me, you've always been one of my most incredible mentors. And I can't thank you enough for all that you do for music education.
We're just glad to have you in the DOE family. And to all of you, here again, I'm going to say this for the umpteenth time. If you want something, need something, want to get to Richard, these are open ears. These are highways that we can connect you to each other. And Richard will take as much time as you want to spend time with you. So again, Richard, thanks you. Thanks to Sarah, to Ethan. No, I love the family. You too, my good brother. And to all of you, thanks for being here at Backstage. And this is a keeper. This is going to in the plutonium section. All righty. Thanks. We'll see you next time at Backstage. Bye-bye.